So what is a mini boat? 8 foot, well they have 6 foot now, 10 foot, 13 foot. Where it is a boat, no longer a mini boat. I don't know, but feel like they're getting bigger, and they're getting bigger and bigger engines in them. We're getting 14, 16 footers with K-swapped engines in them and all that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna build a OG mini boat. That's right, I'm gonna go back in time and build original 10 footer with a Kawasaki triple 2-stroke in there, because I believe that is kind of the foundation of the mini boat world, how they all got started. Maybe even a little bit smaller than this, but I don't know. I just felt like I kind of wanted to go back to the roots of mini boats, build something that's affordable, not $60,000. This thing isn't going to be cheap because there's still a lot of time in it, but just kind of getting back to the roots. So let's go along. Follow me if you want. We're going to build a 10-foot mini boat with a Kawasaki triple. Let's do this. All right, guys, back in the workshop, back in the boat in the workshop. Feels pretty good. I'm going to build this RSRacecraft 3.0 meter completely off of my brain and my knowledge and no instructions. I know that RSRacecraft has some instructions out there, but I think they're pretty much for the Skookum, the 3.3 and the 3.6s, actually the 3.6. So I'm going to go completely off the cuff and just do this one on my own. So I do know the basics. I've built, I don't know, 4 or 5 of these RSRacecraft so far, and I know the basics of it. So I'm going to kind of create my own instructions as I go. But we're going to start off. The biggest difference between this boat and the Skookum is that this is a 1-piece bottom. It's a 1/4-inch plate. So that automatically, I just saved half of a day by not having to do the 3-piece bottom together. So the very first thing we want to do is pull up the bow and get this seam right down the keel of the bow tacked into position. I kind of got a little bit of a jump start, but I wanted to talk about this really quick. And it takes 2 different types of squeezing and pulling. So I'm using the straps to pull the bow up, and I'm using this clamp to squeeze it together as I tension these things. So I'm going to turn the camera around, put it on the time lapse, and watch me go to work. My goal is to get this thing down here, essentially a 0. This is just the saw curve width, but I'm trying to pull this thing all the way up as we go. Nice hot tacks, and sometimes I'll do about a 1-inch weld, just because I don't want that tack to pop off there and it'll literally come undone like a zipper. So I'm going to get to work on that, start pulling this thing up, start getting it tacked together. All right, guys, that went pretty easy. You can, I don't know if you can see when I release those clamps, the incredible amount of spring tension that is in there, but got it all pulled up, man. The seam is nice. It's pretty much airtight, pretty much down there. I go back and put, just like I said, a couple welds in here. I welded this all the way up because this little tab gets cut off. That's just for clamping, so part of that's gonna get cut off. But I throw a couple welds in there. That's just because when I start tweaking these panels around with the sides and the bow, I don't want those things popping off. So that's what I do, just a couple welds. There's no heat in there. I can already put my bare hand on all that, so no big deal there. My next step is I'm gonna put the chine extensions on the bow, and that will probably lead me to cutting those off. And then the next thing will be to putting the engine bears, getting those all welded up, and the transom in place. So who knows, I don't know how far this is gonna go, but the beauty about a kit boat is they go so flipping fast compared to hand fabricating a race boat from scratch. So prepping the forward extension of the chine here, a little bit of prep work to do this. See if I can show you this. Let me get it to focus. So I put a little chamfer around this, and that's gonna make a nice weld contact. So I'm gonna get these leading edge chine extensions welded on or tacked on, and then off we go from there. But to keep this line going, I'm kind of constantly moving. You know, I'm just going about 4 or 5 inches at a time, and sometimes it makes more sense to have the part down below, but sometimes I gotta pull it up above. So I'm just kind of going along and figuring it out, like what needs to be the best spot. Right there is perfect to tack that. You can just feel it, like it's nice and flush and perfect. Hit it with a tack. Just keep moving up, and like, okay, so now I'm gonna have to move this thing, and usually the more leverage you can get, like grabbing it all the way at the end, you're gonna get more effect. That's perfect right there. Yeah, that's still good. Small tacks are better. That's what my welding instructor taught me. Okay, moving right along, and like you saw back there at the beginning, like if it's not quite perfect, I can just, these aren't two perfectly flat parts, but I can just manipulate a little bit by just putting a little pressure with that vice grip. I'm moving my way up, so you kind of got to get creative. There's no, I don't care what kind of instruction book, you just got to kind of get creative, and I had to use a ratchet strap to pull this part of it in. Not much pressure, but just some to get it to move in. And well, see, as soon as I did that, nope, it's still good. So you just gotta get creative, be be patient, take your time, make sure you get it right, and if you don't, pop the tack off, clean it off, and keep on going. It's not a big deal, but that happens a lot, is kind of having to pop those off. Alright, we're moving along here pretty good. See now, like that part wants to come down, but obviously that seam, so I'm going to have to hold it up here to get this right. So I'll hold it all the way at the end with one arm to make that fit back there. Same thing, coming on up. I hope the camera's picking this up. It may not be. As soon as you start that welder with the tack, it starts to move. You can feel like as soon as you put that heat into that, it starts to move. Like I just felt that thing pulling up a little bit. There we go. Got one of those on. I love it. It's nice and perfect. Perfect reveal all the way. Now let's do the other side. All right, so I know that these things need to be perfectly flush, so I clamp that super tight, and I know that we're at least in the right starting spot. Now that is going to set essentially the angle of this chine to go all the way up there. So that's why I start there. Like I said, I clamp it, make sure it's exactly right. So that kind of gets me off and going. So now here we go, working this plate up. All right, it's all together. It came up to a nice point. Just took a little bit of kind of twisting and kind of manipulating the plates around, but got this thing all together. So here we go. We got the bottom done. We got the forward chine extensions on. It's time to put the sides on here now that I got the bow all pulled up. It's ready to go put the sides on. So how am I gonna hold this flipping 10-foot sheet of aluminum? And you got to get creative. So I literally just used a couple little straps. This is a new thing I just tried this time. I've tried a bunch of different techniques, but you can see this thing is roughly in the position so that I can use one hand now down there and start tacking that thing on. So I'm going to give it a go. We'll see how this goes by myself. Again, this is always really, really tough because they're such long, floppy pieces, and handling those by yourself while you're trying to tack it, it's a nightmare. So here we go. Let's get this side on. All right, guys. Well, when I'm put on the side, as soon as I want to release these things, even with the tacks on here, this thing just wants to pop off. So I realize it needs the transom in there for support to give it that kind of upright. So I kind of stopped right there, and I'm going to put the transom together really quick. This thing is a 3-part transom because of the tunnel in here for the swim stab. So the first thing that I'm going to do is put this flat plate in here. I got it clamped down again, chamfer in there so you can get some weld inside of that chamfer. I'm going to do both sides of there, and then this is the tunnel which goes inside of here like so, and then gets that tacked, and then this is going to be an all outside edge-to-edge weld. So I'm going to get to going, welding that thing together. They're not too bad. I have kind of noticed that when you look at the transom, here's a nice flat spot and here's a nice flat spot. And if you can see how I clamped that to my table, it takes this big, really awkward piece and it makes it manageable. So I kind of keep this thing clamped to the table like that while I'm doing these, and it works out great. So I'm gonna get to going on welding this transom together. making pretty good progress. Did the front side of the transom, now flipped it over, did some back gouging with the meat saw, cleaned those all out, and then welded the inside of the tunnel. So it is welded inside and out. This transom's done. At least it's done enough to go ahead and throw in the boat. So let's get that thing up there, see what it looks like, see if it's gonna work to hold, put the transom in there, and then have the transom hold the sides up. All right, so let's get the transom and the sides on this thing. I wanna talk really quick about how I did this. The RSRacecraft, I know their Skookum kit comes with pre-markings on where exactly on the back after the boat, where does that end of the side line up? And that kind of lines out where the transom goes across. This one, it had a little mark, but I don't think it was accurate. So what I did, and this is the first time of doing this, is I measured this curved edge of the side. You can see the curve there. And I was very careful to make sure that the tape measure followed the entire curvature of that side and came up with that distance. I think it was like 125¼ inches or something like that. So then I took my tape measure and hooked it to the bow and pulled, and again, make sure I kept that tape measure going right along that curve of the boat and the bow transition, and I found my mark. Here is where a mark was, they put a little dimple there, but this is where that 125¼ actually comes to. So I don't know if that thing's inaccurate or what. We're gonna find out. Right now, I got this thing just tacked on, but it's still being held up by my little rig system. I need to get the transom in here, and then I can tack it to the side, and it will hold the side, and then I can start pulling the bow in there. If I start pulling it right now, it's just too floppy, and this mechanism's gonna fail again. So, drew out my lines, getting ready to tack the transom in here. One last thing that I did is, because of the welding that's done, I welded this little temporary strong back to the transom to keep it nice and straight and flat. That way it should line up on that mark perfectly. That thing will come out when I'm done with it. Just wiggle it and then grind those tack marks off. Anyway, let's get to going on getting the sides and the transom on this thing, and it'll really kind of transform and start looking like a mini boat. All right, guys, I got one side on and the transom. So there you have it. You probably saw me struggling a little bit. This one was kind of tough. As you kind of twist and lift the side panel in there, I was popping tack, so I would go through and put little 1-inch welds. Whenever your stuff starts popping, I just do like an inch weld and then stop that from happening. But anyway, we got one side on. This is so tough with one person. It would be 10 times easier with a helper. So I got the other side kind of balanced and just hanging from one strap. So I've already kind of checked it out. It's kind of easy for me to maneuver back there by myself. So the transom that thing is tacked and got some mini welds in there. This thing is on. Now it's time to get this other side on. And that's going to really stabilize everything. And then after that, I'm probably going to take it down off of these the sawhorses and get to work on the deck, the engine bears, all that kind of stuff. So here we go. Another time lapse or another long video of me fighting with a stupid floppy side I swear I could probably do this in 5 minutes if I had a helper, but by myself, it's almost like an hour per side. I did some pretty good work here. Got both sides on, obviously, the forward shine extensions, the transom, the 3-piece transom all put together. So one of my things that I kind of want to show in this video is how long it takes to build one of these mini boats. I'm horrible about keeping track of time, but I'll do my best. And I will say that today, I finished this side, I got the transom together, and I got that side on in probably about 4 hours. That was today. I have about 3 days work in it, but they're not full days. I put the transom on, and then I'm a big F1 fan. They had FP1 down in Mexico, so I took an hour off. Went inside, watched F1, came back outside, put the other side back on. FP2, take another hour break, go in. So I'm not going crazy on this thing. This is about, I'd say that this is about a full day's work right here. There really isn't that much to do to the bottom because it's a single piece, just the seam and the 2 chine extensions. But the transom, that's a little bit more detailed with the 3-piece and a lot of welding on that thing, welding that entire tunnel. So anyway, got some good progress. I got to go to work this weekend, Saturday, Sunday. You will see this video Sunday. So when we get back, I got to put the upper part of the sides on, the bow deck. But before I do that, I want to get the engine bears in there because those are usually going first. But I didn't know exactly where the transom was going to end up location-wise. So I got to get those in before we do really anything else. If that bottom starts to kind of tweak or whatever, it's going to cause me issues. So I think I'll do that first, get those in there. Then I'll throw on the upper sides and the bow deck. So thanks for watching. Tune in. I don't know how many videos this is going to be. The building, the hole is the easy part. It's all the rigging and all that stuff that takes forever. But anyway, I do appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments down below.